Dawn and Ruth were saying that the Chrismon is kind of like the Christian emoji, right? A fun way of showing who Jesus is without having to use all the language.
Yeah, that's really great. Welcome to Stitchology, Devotions for Creative Heart. I'm Angel Jackson, and I pastor alongside the people of St. Jacob in North Canton.
And I am Tina Crog, and I pastor alongside the good folks at St. Jacob in Massillon, Ohio.
And here we are with the first episode of our 2024 Chrismon series.
They're hard to say.
It's really tricky. But yeah, first, what's going on?
I just want to know, we are in your lovely remodeled home.
I've been working on it. I think last series I talked about how that was part of where all my creativity was going at the time, was trying to,
And part of why we picked recording here is because of this beautiful red couch. It felt very Christmassy, and we thought, why not?
Yeah, makes a good Christmas background.
It does.
It does. Welcome to my home.
Oh, what are you crafting today?
Those of you who have been with us
have heard that at one point, my God moment was finding these amazing keen tone yarns.
I found them at Joanne.
Very excited about them because I am currently working on a project for my
niblet, of my gender neutral term for my sister's children.
And I am working on a nativity
because I wanted a nativity that they could play with and really, tell the story, because my kids did that growing up, but they all had very white Jesuses.
Yeah,
which is not historically accurate and also does not reflect the skin tone of the people I love.
I thought to myself, I'll make a whole nativity. And you were like most Christmas. I've lowered
expectations a little bit
to be, I think I'm going to get through Mary, Joseph, baby Jesus, and probably the donkey.
Hey,
and then I feel like coming at the end of every year. So you'll see them, Joseph and half of Mary are hanging out behind me, making 2 sets at a time. So
there they are. And they're pretty adorable.
And they're such a nice size. They're a very fun size. I've been super happy with the pattern. Yeah.
And I'm going to share it with you. It is Nativity Crochet Pattern by Jennifer Percival. And it's like a whole set of them. And I found it on Ravelry and have been happy with it so far. Though I feel like every crafting project, you learn something either about your craft or about yourself.
Yeah.
And I actually hate, many people love to crochet small figures. That is a big trend right now.
I hate them.
I don't like the little detail work, and the changing all the time and the leaving in the ends is like my least favorite thing. So I'm making myself weave in ends as I go, because way too often I've done it, and then at the end I have to weave in all the ends, and I'm like so done by then. So I'm weaving in ends as I go. I'm making both figures at the same time. So yeah, I
love that.
Joseph's done, and 2 Mary started.
I love it. I love Bold Mary. I actually think that's a really, like she has alopecia or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she actually has a head covering in the... Yeah, so we'll see.
Oh,
we'll play with it. I can make it my own as we go.
So I have never added beads to crochet projects before. Is that hard to do for the eyes?
So these are actually safety. They're actually called safety eyes.
Okay.
And they're... We're the best that have this right in it. I happen to have the package. They come like that in a box of them.
Oh, so you basically...
you just stick them in. You stick them where you want them and put the backs on them for either crocheting. So not the same as like a beaded crochet project.
That's nice.
So that is really, really, really nice.
Do you recommend?
Oh, that's fabulous. So that's what I'm working on right now. And slowly but surely I'm getting that.
Well, what are they working on? I'm working on some crochet work right now. I don't crochet often, but I really like to make something for my daughter for the holidays. And I wanted to make her a hat, and I did make her a hat, and that's linked to my God moment. I'm going to pause on the hat bit. But as I'm shopping for yarn, there's this old adage that
working with yarn is one hobby and shopping for yarn is another hobby. So I ended up purchasing a whole bunch of yarn. And so I'm working through something. And I actually think this is a blessing because I am going to Chicago for the National Conference of Christian Unity. I'm representing our denomination, the region, as a part of that. And I love to take cross stitch with me usually. There's a lot of like spreading out and I'm not sure what the environment is going to be. So I figure I'm going to take my crochet stuff and use that to get through the event. So I know, if I don't have a table or something, I'm not just, taking up the seats next to me or whatever. So I'm currently making a scarf. I made a hat and I crocheted my first flower. So I'm very excited about that. I'll try to put a picture in here so you can see what that looks like. I also am going to be visiting my in-laws in Arizona at the end of December. And so I need a plain craft. We've talked about that before, like the necessity of a craft for many different occasions. For speaker and aptly. The crafts that I can't take to meetings because I need to read the pattern too closely. And then so that makes sense. Exactly. Carrying around the little scissors because good scissors makes a difference when you're doing embroidery. And I just can't take them on a plane and I don't really want to set them on a seat and have somebody sit on it. Yeah. I really can take them on a plane. But but the whole sitting on them and not because that's the whole thing. But yeah, you can take scissors on a plane without any problem. Interesting. Yeah. I might do that one. I don't. Yeah. I'm gonna get a call from Tina. Tina saying, "You still like me." Now I can't see my mother-in-law. It's your fault. Knitting needle and scissors. I'm taking on plane. So hilarious. Yeah. So how does that connect with your God moment? So my God moment is just the cuteness of my little girl. She's 2.5 and we are working on potty training. That's not going well. Zero successes. Had more successes before we seriously started potty training than we had right now. But she likes to walk around holding stacks of her training underpants like this. And nothing but her shirt and the hat that I made her. And then she sings a song she made up goes underpants, underpants, song, underpants, underpants. And she just walks around with her little crocheted hat and her t-shirt, pantsless, holding her underpants. And I just think it's adorable. Life and play to feel good, right? She loves her underpants and her hat. I love that. So that actually reminds me of a God moment I had this weekend. I got to see one of said Niblet, who is intended for this. And they are working on potty training as well. And they were explaining to me the wonders of peeing outside as part of this process and just said needed to do that right when we were sailing out at night playing with the frisbee, but Lyrid's joy and all of those things. And the reminder that I'm parenting, we just do what it is that we need to do. Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Absolutely. I love it. So where have you seen God? Definitely am getting to see family this weekend, spending some time with my niblet. And I love the fall and being out and in the leaves. And as we prep for the next season, I'm trying to enjoy this one. Hi, Greg. Thank you for joining us and sharing with us about our cookie recipe for the week. You've got these cute little star cookies. What kind of cookie is this for us today?
This is called a Zimster. Zimster. Zimt, C-I-M-T, means cynic in German. Mm-hmm. And they're primarily, you can make them with hazelnuts or almonds. I always make them with almond meal. He used flour, you have to add more moisture. But just take almonds and grind them up in food processor, add a little flour, sugar, and cinnamon. Those have not been iced yet. Most Zimstern recipes are different than my recipe. I want to try the other regular recipe, which uses the almond meal and egg whites, Cranberry, and powdered sugar.
So when you say almond meal, that means it's probably less flour than a regular?
Almond meal you just take the almonds and grind them up in a
I
food
see.
process. My recipe calls for just a little bit of flour. The other recipes don't use flours.
Interesting. So if we have somebody who's gluten intolerant or needs low gluten, this would be a good cookie to go with.
Those would be great. Mine uses a little bit of flour. You could use almonds, so that would take the gluten out there.
Oh, that's a fantastic tip. Thank you so much. I love the cinnamon. My husband is going to go crazy for this. He puts cinnamon on everything. So
Yeah, I love cinnamon.
it's one of my favorites. So thank you very much, Greg.
Moving into our topic for the day. And I have to say, I am looking forward to this. Every single congregation that I've served, when I have come, has said to me, as we get close to the holiday season and we start unpacking the decoration, they say, Pastor, why don't you do a sermon series about Chrismon? And I say, I don't know any. And everybody's a little bit shocked. In my fairly traditional German Lutheran kind of congregation, that I don't really know much about them, that they didn't cover it in seminary. And why did they not cover Chrismons in seminary?
The main reason is that Chrismons are new. They were not a thing until 1957. There was a woman who, I have to remind myself, Frances Kipps Spencer was the woman. And she realized that it would be a good idea to create ornament that used the traditional symbols for Christ that have been around for centuries. The Chris is short for Christ, and then the Mons is short for monograms. And so if we think about the different sorts of symbols and icons that are either put on paintings or at the bottom of stained glass windows, those sorts of things, she wanted to find a way to connect that to the Christmas tree. So these are facts that we know, is that she started making them in 1957, and that she wrote 4 books about the Chrismons that she particularly created. And they were small books. They were like those small, like little paperback, almost pamphlet-y sort of books, because she wanted congregations to be able to make them and know how to make them. They had tutorials on how to make some of the Chrismons that she recommended. You can find reproductions of those books on Amazon, minus the instructions on how to make the craft. But the legend, the thing that we can't verify, but the wonderful story that has been wrapped around this fact is that her pastor was lamenting how her church needed new ornaments. But the church was poor and they couldn't afford it. And so they found some like leftover paper, like wrapping paper or ribbon and other sorts of like decoration refuse. And he said, can you make ornaments for our tree from this? Oh, interesting. And so that he gets some credit for giving her that idea.
The Holy Spirit was wrapped up in all of that somewhere.
Yeah.
Connecting folks. I love it.
Yeah. What's also really cool for us is that this is a Lutheran thing. She attended the Lutheran Church of the Assumption in Dansville, Virginia. And it's a very Protestant idea, but it has its roots in, again, this iconography that extends across all denominations.
Nice. Fascinating.
So your husband has very strong feelings about Chrismons being gold and white.
Yeah, I think that I have no idea, honestly. I see that he has strong opinions about a lot of things, and I'm never sure what they're going to be used. So, but I think that is because historically, in kind of a purist kind of circle, that's what I've seen. They're all gold and white.
Yes, that is true that they are commonly gold and white. And the idea is that the white represents the purity that Christ provides to the world, and the gold represents the kingdomness, the reign of God here on earth. And so that's why you will traditionally see Chrismons in gold and white. I can tell you from having read Francis's works, she doesn't discourage other colors. And so I think that's just something that we like to see gold and silver around Christmas, right? It's a familiar color for us. So,
well, yeah. And liturgically, we think about Christmas colors as being red and green, but liturgically in the churches that keep a liturgical calendar, the color that is actually the official color is white for festivals. So, white and gold would be what the church would be decorated in.
Now, does your church hang Chrismons?
We do. Yeah, we do. Some different iterations of times that they have been made. So we have some styrofoam one with the beading and the sequence, and we have some beaded ones, purely beaded on wire.
That's beautiful.
And we have some of the plastic canvas that are stitched on plastic can.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
So I think that was the last version that folks got together and made.
I do like that canvas medium, because you can use yarn. It's like the best of crocheting and cross stitch at the same time. And
it's something that's a little more accessible for folks who aren't, don't do the cross stitch. At my last congregation, St. John Maxina, we had the styrofoam. They were purely styrofoam. And when they started falling apart, God bless me, bought some big sheets of styrofoam at the craft store and a burner, because I read somewhere that was the best way to do that. And so we actually created new shapes and added beads and glitter and glue with the kiddos.
But did that work out well?
I have sworn never again. But I'm sure it would work well for some people. But it's good, right? I don't know. It was a great experience.
And thankfully, they will last for at least another 20 years.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about it.
So what's our first symbol? So our first symbol is the Jesus fish. And I think we want to really note that when we're making Chrismons, we're mostly going to be talking about the history of how these symbols came to be and their biblical connections. I thought it would be good for us to start with an image that's pretty familiar for us, which is the Jesus fish. Your pattern has the fish on the outside and then the Greek lettering that is the background to why we use the phrase fish.
So backing up, right? The symbols that we have chosen, most of the symbols of Chrismons aren't necessarily what we would consider Christmassy.
Exactly.
Or that the world considers Christmassy, right?
Exactly.
And so why? And that's because we're wrapping up the entirety of Jesus' story. Why do we celebrate the incarnation? Why does that matter? Because God came in the form of a baby, and that doesn't matter unless he lives the rest of his life.
And what I'm finding so powerful about learning about these Christians is that they all represent a different aspect of Jesus' life and ministry. And so if you think about the Chrismon tree, a tree with nothing but chrismons on it, you're getting a wider scope of who Jesus is instead of just the babe in the manger, which I think is fun. I was recently having a conversation with our colleagues through Created Creative, a wonderful podcast that talks about how God's creativity can be found in all sorts of different ways. I highly encourage you to check them out. And Dawn and Ruth were saying that the Chrismon is like the Christian emoji, right? That gives us a fun way of showing and representing who Jesus is without having to use all the language. And I think that's super fun.
Yeah, that's really great. So definitely check out their podcast and check out your episode on there.
Yeah. I was very honored to be a part. And if you're looking for Christian coaching,
Don Truman is a wonderful resource to check out.
Great.
So this week we're talking about the Jesus fish, and that have become very popular in the late 20th century. But the image of the fish in Christianity has been around for a long time. And that is because of the Greek word or symbols that come up with the Greek phrase of Jesus Christ, God's Son, our Savior. So if you take the first Greek letter of all of those words, it comes out to ictus, which means fish, and that's where this image came to be. And in the early Christian church, because it wasn't safe to be a Christian in a empire that believed their emperor was a god, in order for Christians to communicate with each other safely, they would pass along symbols of the fish, or they would carve the fish into their doorpost to help identify themselves as a safe space. And that really began taking off in full in about the 2nd century.
So
almost like a secret handshake.
Yeah.
In not in like the weird way, but in like the best way of identifying, a community.
Exactly. Does the Bible actually refer to Jesus as a fish?
Nope.
No, but right, it makes sense, and that's the fact that he's always hanging out with fishermen and he eats a lot of fish. But no, that is a later development.
Yeah, part of it is just because of the territory in which he worked, and also because of the complexities of what fishermen and other working class people who were merchants faced while navigating in the empire. Okay, I thought maybe we could start off by taking a look at one of the more familiar passages of Jesus and fish.
Love it.
We're in Luke chapter 5. And that is verses 2 through 11.
You have the NRV.
And I have the New English Bible.
A New English Bible. Ooh, that's interesting. That's an interesting translation. Maybe we should start with one. All right, let's do it. One day, as he stood by the lake of Gennesaret, and the people crowded upon him to listen to the word of God, he noticed 2 boats lying at the water's edge. The fishermen had come ashore and were washing their net. He got into one of the boats which belonged to Simon and asked him to put out a little way from the shore. Then he went on teaching the crowd from his seat in the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we were hard at work all night and caught nothing at all. But if you say so, I will let down the net." They did so and made a big haul of fish, and their nets began to split. So they signaled to their partners in the boat to come and help them. This they did and loaded both boats to the point of sinking. When Simon saw what had happened, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go, Lord, leave me, sinner that I am." For he and all his companions were amazed at the catch they had made. So too were his partners, James and John, Zebedee's sons. "Do not be afraid," said Jesus to Simon. "From now on, you will be catching men." As soon as they had brought the boats to the land, they left everything and followed him. So it's not a very inclusive translation. No, mine says, "From now on, you will be catching people."
Yeah.
Which is the way that word would have been used in a time to be translated into people.
Yes, like humankind.
Yeah, exactly.
I
love the sons of Zebedee because Zebedee means thunder. So they're like the sons of thunder. Every time I come across Zebedee, I get excited. Yeah, that's a good word. I think this passage is beautiful just on like the surface reading that we have, where we're hearing about Jesus teaching and calling people to do their work.
and to reimagine what their work looks like. But I think it's helpful to remember what fishing is like in the Roman Empire. All of the places where fishermen fished were in territories that were owned by the Roman Empire. So this lake belonged to the Roman Empire, and so everything that was inside belonged to Rome. So fishermen would have to pay a tax to even go out onto the lake. Then they would have to pay a tax on the amount of fish that they brought in, and then they would have to pay a tax again when they sold that fish. And so this is one of the many examples of just the extreme control that Rome has over everyday people. If we were to go to Lake Sippo here in Stark County and we were to catch a fish, we wouldn't have to pay anybody for that. And if we were to sell it, maybe if we sold a ton of fish, we'd have to pay some taxes. But even to feed themselves from what they caught, they would have to pay Rome twice. And Jesus is offering not only a change in vocation, but freedom from a system that requires people to be in this fiscal bondage. And I think that's really powerful.
And it makes sense to me because it is for the people that Jesus would have been talking to, it would have been such a symbol of that, of like livelihood and of being able to feed your family and et cetera. So there's, in a sense, it's a staple in that area in a way that we don't necessarily think about fish in our time.
Exactly. And as we're thinking about what the symbol means with Jesus being the fish, the symbol is not just of a symbol of Christianity, it's also a symbol of freedom from economic toil.
All of the sense of bounty, right? Like that's a thing that we forget about. We think daily bread, but just like Jesus' economy and offers like a great bounty here, like more than they can handle.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sinks the boat. Like this bounty is so much. And imagine how tired they are. Like, the reason why they fished at night is because the fish would come up closer to the surface, so it was easier for them to catch. And so here they are, they're tired, and then they've got this dude sitting on a boat, talking away, probably scaring the fish open. Be quite frankly. And yet they don't leave empty-handed. They are provided for on a multitude of levels.
That's huge.
It is huge. It is huge. I have one more passage we're open to checking out. This is one of the weirder miracles of Jesus. Matthew 17, verses 24 through 27. When they had reached Capernaum, the collectors out the temple tax came to Peter and said, "Does your teacher not pay the temple tax?" He says, "Yes, he does." And when he came home, Jesus spoke of it first, saying, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do kings of the earth take toll or tribute? From their children or from others?" When Peter said, "From others," Jesus said to him, "Then the children are free. However, so that we do not give offense to them, go to the sea and cast a hook. Take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find a coin. And take that and give it to them for you and me."
My final line says, "It will meet the tax for both of us."
Oh,
Like it will not only, yeah, I think that's interesting. As you're saying that, like taxes are like a real, like economic burden, right? What Jesus finds, what they find in this fish will cover two people's taxes.
yeah. And this is a temple tax. This is a tax for the right to be able to speak in the temple, which is different than like the offerings that are given to the temple from your first fruits or any of that. You want to teach Sunday school, you got to pay for it. That's hard.
I'm impressed they're getting Sunday school teachers at Imagery. But it does go back to the challenge, constantly challenging Jesus' authority throughout the Gospels. And so this sense of God provide the thing that allows for the proclamation of the good news.
I find this particular miracle interesting because it's only found in the Gospel of Matthew, and Matthew is so specifically invested in the reframing of what Judaism looks like in light of this Messiah that doesn't match the Messiah that they had envisioned. And so the relationship to the temple is really unique here because the fact that Jesus goes to an aspect of creation in order to meet the need of this system that needs to be reformed shifts the understanding of what the Messiah is going to do, right? The Messiah was linked to this idea of being from a great army. And so the fact that this Messiah is not going to a kingdom's wealth in order to bring salvation, but going to the actual elements of creation is another reframing of how the Messiah is different than how people had envisioned him to be.
Oh, interesting.
It would also be super weird if you opened up a fish's mouth and just found this coin hanging out. It would not be what I expected. For sure.
So not only it has economic and religious implications in Jesus' time, fish in general, along with these stories, but then to circle back, it has a sense of community, right? Like it makes sense that this fish symbol is the theme, the way that followers of the way or followers of Jesus identified and then gathered around it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So in a way, when we're seeing it on a Christmas tree, representing all of those things, freedom, kind of abundant, the right to proclaim the gospel, as well as like the community that we find in each other.
Yes. The ability to experience the bounty of Christ is as plenty as the fish in the sea.
I love it. What a fantastic unpacking of just one of the symbols that we might see on a Chrismon tree and the one that you're working on creating, maybe.
Until next time, may God bless your resting and your creating. Amen. Thank you for listening to this episode of our season. Please remember you can find all previous and upcoming craft-alongs at our website at stitchologycrafts.com. We would like to thank you for supporting us by being our listener. We are grateful for the support of both of our congregations, but that support has limits. We invite you to prayerfully consider becoming a sponsor by making a donation at stitchologycrafts.com. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, happy stitching!